Hello and welcome to Move Conversations. This is your host Venkat. In this edition of Move Conversations, I talk to Ms. Shabari Raje, co-founder of Findmeashoe.com. I have had the situations where my shoe size is okay for certain models and brands, but if I follow that size for another style or another brand of shoe, then I end up with shoes that bite my feet. Our guest today assured me that there was nothing wrong with me, which is exactly what was my worry, that something is wrong with Venkat. So it is the sizes and the standards to which shoes are made and the way they are sold that cause these problems. Her company has a solution for that, and they are changing the way shoes are sold both in shops and online. Welcome to Move Conversation, Shabari. We are delighted to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Venkat. Absolutely thrilled to be here. And,
Our
and
pleasure.
like you mentioned, you've given a very, very apt description about the problem that we are trying to solve here. Yeah.
So that gives me a lead to ask you, was it a shoe that pinched you that made you set up this company? Tell us the origin story
Yes,
of it.
yes, absolutely. I mean, you've hit the nail on the wall. So about 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, I
Uh-huh.
actually went for a trek in Africa, Kilimanjaro trek, which is
Wow.
pretty
Okay.
hard. And when I came down, I mean, typically the ascent is over 6 days and the descent is over 1 day. It's a fairly strenuous trek. I had
Right.
lost my toenails
Oh my.
simply because I was wearing the shoe which was a little too tight. And nobody told me this, that your foot is going to expand, right? After using it so strenuously for like 5, 6 days. And
Right.
especially when you pick a mountaineering shoe, you should have either picked up a half size up or a wider shoe. Or, so, and basically there's no advice available on that. And
Exactly.
obviously losing your toenails is not fun. And that's when I realized I should have known this better. And then I realized a lot of people didn't know this better too. I wasn't the
I too
only
did
one,
know. I
right?
had such an experience in Malaysia. I'd bought
Right.
a trekking shoe specially, and then yeah, good. Tell us more. Yeah.
So that's when we started out the journey. And, that's when we realized that and at that time, my husband was in an MBA program where I met my co-founder, Anand.
Right.
Like he was a friend of my husband's. And that's when we started discussing this. And he had a very similar experience about buying shoes abroad and some of them fitting, some of them not fitting, like you were mentioning, right? Like a formal shoe fits him very well, but he could never find a running shoe.
Right.
And
Right.
that's how this entire journey started. And then we realized that actually, no, it's not just shoes in a way, but
Mhm.
the whole of retail, like a lot of shirts which are manufactured for a certain body type.
Right.
And they're just made in one part of the world and sold all over the world without really understanding, that a tall man in the US looks very different from a tall man in Punjab, for example, right?
Right. 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 Right.
So,
Or
I mean,
Japan or anywhere else or in Africa.
exactly,
Yeah.
correct.
So
So,
what's the product or service that you offer them?
exactly. And then, so what we do is, in a sense, we realize that one, we need to start understanding these differences in your body type. And especially with shirts and apparel, you can live with it. With footwear, there are serious health implications
True.
and you will call a return. So that's when we decided to focus. And, if you're okay, maybe I'll just run you through the story of how this actually evolved out, right? So
Sure.
maybe I'll
Sure.
just share a few slides. Like, let me just
Please.
bring that up.
Please. Please.
Mhm. So let me know when it's nice and full screen.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah. So this is the story of Find Me a Shoe, which I'll just briefly take you through to put things in context. So
Right.
this is what happens. Like we were talking about, things are made in one part and just proliferated. And especially with foot, people think, hey, it's only the foot length, but that's not true. Foot has a shape. It's a 3D object.
Right.
And cumulative, and it's not a problem specific to one geography. We've seen this happen like every year in Europe or even in America. There is an end of year sale or end of season sale. And
Right.
most of these shoes are shoes which are manufactured not to fit anybody. That's why they've not been picked up. I mean, of course, there can be bad design, wrong pricing, all of that.
Right.
But in essence, these shoes were not meant to fit somebody. That's why they landed up in this. And what we've seen is typically manufacturers and retailers go through huge losses. And this is a cumulative number. The reason I
Okay.
like to start with this is kind of puts it out that we're wasting 15 billion every year. And it's only because we don't have a way of fundamentally designing systems. So
Right,
why is that
right.
happening? Because even if you think you know your size, like, hey, you're roughly a size 8,
Mm,
but that will fit you probably in one model in one brand. When
right.
you translate between brands and between sizes, like you were saying, right? Like that's the reason partly is that because the sizing scale that we have today, I
Mhm.
mean, if you want to just take a guess, when do you think that was originated? Like
I don't know. When they
much
started fighting the wars, like Prussian War or something, uniforms and things like
correct,
that. I don't know, 1800 something, something. I don't know. When
precisely. But
standardization of clothes and uniforms
right,
started, probably.
started exactly when batch manufacturing came into process, right?
Yeah.
Which is really, really long time ago. And there had to be some barometer to make a shoe. So they
Hmm.
said, hey, why don't we actually just take the length of the shoe and make some batches, and which was meant for manufacturing,
Okay.
not meant for a consumer to buy shoe and forget online, right? Like the world has changed so much.
Hmm.
And we see that, and we're still using that system. So
Right.
after, and then we started researching this,
Right.
we realize that this is absurd. Like everything else has changed about the world, and
Exactly.
this needs to change. So to jump without further ado, to jump into how we solve this problem,
Right. Tell
we
us.
essentially think that we should be sizing your foot, right? Like
Right.
or measuring you. I mean, the best way to understand what your foot needs is to actually first step is to measure you. And
True.
on that note, what has happened is we've come up with over the years as the company started, we see ourselves as a leader in this space. We started out with a hardware model
Mm-hmm.
because that is what was available 5 years ago when we started off.
Mm-hmm.
A smartphone couldn't do as much as it does today.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a big fat scanner, and we are the only private player in Asia probably who's collected, these many foot profiles to
Right.
really understand are there different shapes? How can we categorize people better?
Right.
And beyond the length. And what we've done is we've actually come up with this very simplistic model that we understand your foot on 27 different other parameters rather than just the length.
Okay.
And I mean, that's a very good base. So just to, take a quick blip in history. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
when people say, hey, that's you must be the first people to measure feet. No, actually, this problem has been there since manufacturing, right?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
When back then, when they didn't know how bad X-rays were, they put a few kids through this. I feel sorry for them, but they used to actually measure your foot by this method. Like this is the oldest known techie version of measuring your foot. But
Not a bad
thankfully,
start, right? In terms of like,
not
they said, hey, we can get the bone images, then that's a good idea. I
correct
mean, like the
because
X-ray effect is different, but like, conceptually they were on the right track.
absolutely, and especially the way your bones are formed, right?
Yeah.
Beyond the length, that determines what we call as a toe box shape, and
Right.
that's extremely critical to shoe fitting. And this is something that has a much simplified version, but this
Right.
is also 100 years old. I think you still see this in a lot of stores, and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
still a gold standard
Yeah.
of
Yeah. Yeah.
reference, right?
Right.
To that, but thankfully, I think this is where we want to change the story from what we have today.
Mm-hmm.
That we want to say bye, goodbye to all these size. So essentially, all these are size scales. They don't
Right.
still tell you what's meant for you. When you put your leg on a brand, it still tells you you're size 7, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's where I would like to change the story. And if you
Right.
see this, what the video is showing, all you need to do is that keep your leg
Okay.
on a piece of paper against a wall and take one simple photo. No app, nothing, just a
Right.
browser,
Right.
and I can size you up completely based on
Wonderful.
that.
Both
So
left
that
and
is the
right, both,
purpose.
right? You need to
Both,
do.
absolutely, absolutely, because it's a very important. Your left foot could be bigger, and we'll recommend as per that,
Right.
right?
Right. Yeah.
So, and what happens at the end of it? We create a digital foot profile. Once you do your left and your right foot, we
Right.
have a profile which is kind of assigned. So the next time you look at something, you can
Yeah.
completely forget what you measured on, right? And for an
Right.
adult, typically, unless you've gone through a life cycle change, like putting on excessive weight or something, for an adult, a foot remains fairly stable. For kids, we size them up every 3 months, literally. But
Eh,
for an adult,
Yeah. Yeah. This is wonderful that every time you size up, right? And then it's not that I can just walk in and say that my size is whatever, a 7, 8, 9, whatever it is, right? You
right.
size them up every time. You sound like exactly like what George Bernard said. He said that I love my tailor best, he said. So people ask, like, why do you love your tailor best of all people, right? He says he's the only one who takes my measurement every time. Everybody else judges
Yes.
me from their past interactions.
Right, right. Because something even between a morning and evening, your foot could undergo swelling, right? And
Yeah,
we
and then
kind
there's
of
some
understand.
people with certain illnesses or with age and all, they do have that problem, right?
Right. So that's what we recommend, that you kind of just do this, and it's very simple and very quick, right? Doesn't really cost anything or practically nothing to get it done. And
Right,
that's what we do. Maybe, and so this is one part of the story, what
right.
we do. And then we have a few key customers who
Oh
kind
yeah,
of
I can see
put
your
this in.
customers. I was going to ask you, like, who are your customers? So Bata is your customer. Wow. Okay.
That's right, absolutely. And what is interesting in Bata is that if you see the kind of people who buy Bata, it's people from all walks of life. There are people, very,
Correct.
very posh people who wear Bata, whereas very, very down to, and we've
Yeah.
seen every single one of them use this tool. We size up. I mean, one of the things that I wanted to share is in the last 6 months, we
Mm-hmm.
hit a milestone of doing a million recommendations.
Million recommendations in 6 months in India. Is that correct?
Right.
For feet,
Globally, I
feet
won't say India, but
globally.
across our customers.
Right.
Right? But Bata
Wonderful.
is a huge contributor of to that, given the sheer volume of data that they throw in our system. And
Right.
we've seen.
A quick question, not to interrupt your flow. So for on Bata, I can do that only if I am logged in as their registered user or something like that. Is it?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay.
So
Fine.
I mean, Bata kind of said in India, if you just leave it open, it's going to get a lot of spam. So
Correct. Correct.
just put a
Okay.
login. The moment you log in, you can avail. I mean, just a Google login, any open login, and you can use the service, right?
Sure. Just in case somebody wants to know. Yeah. Sure. Please proceed. Thanks.
But there are customers who allow you to use it open, and
Okay.
York is one such customer in the US. So maybe I can quickly show a product video.
Okay. So this is on their site. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
That's it.
Okay. It takes 6 measurements. Okay.
Right.
Right.
So I'll just pause here. So this is actually my
Yeah.
favorite
Yeah.
part.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what you saw in Bata is slightly different, but
Right.
the way this customer has implemented it, you see that you took your foot measurement
Right.
and you came back here, and now for this specific model, it's
Right.
telling me for Shabari and the Frank, this is
Right.
how it's going to simulate the fit for you. And
Wonderful.
it's telling me that because I'm a narrower foot and these are US shoes, probably it's going to be slightly loose and relaxed for you, right?
Right.
Because that is the optimal fit for you. But that is the kind of exact detailed simulation that we offer, where
Oh,
for this
wonderful.
particular shoe and this particular foot, with no statistics and no sort of, I mean, just one to one, pure, like a very purest fit that we provide.
Correct. This is interesting. Yeah, because the shoe could be for the narrow and it can be for a broad feet. So somebody, especially who have flat feet, broad feet, or something like that, they can get a better
Correct.
recommendation that normal 7.5, but like, hey, go for 8 now for this best fit, right?
Exactly. So that is where it becomes interesting, right? If I just do all this and I put you back on a size scale,
Right.
it doesn't add any value. And that's why I like to show this, because this particular customer has implemented it very, very nicely, right? So they're
Wonderful.
called your athletics. So what I can do, yeah, I mean,
We can go back to
that's
that.
what, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I can just switch back to
There you
the
go.
presentation. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Wonderful.
So quickly, what I'd like to mention is, and that's what brings us back here, where
Hmm. Hmm.
the way they have implemented, where it exactly gives you what you need to buy, right?
Right.
And going forward, we are also working with certain customers where, say, you shortlist a group of 5 products,
Mm-hmm.
everything based on price, color, whatever. Like the last filter that you can apply is your fit. So we can
Right.
sort them by your fit for you, right? And that's something that I think is the absolute next frontier of this, right? Why not, right? It makes sense. You have a filter for price, you have a filter for colors, but why
Right.
not something as important as fit, which is personalized to you?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know the retailer's preference on the sequence. I would probably put this
But
ahead. If I were the
yes,
customer, I
yes,
would
that
prefer
is
the
me
fit
too.
early and
But
then idea pricing, etc. But then come to fit. Um,
correct.
that's wonderful. So and then you're telling me that like a million people in the last 6 months, and a lot of it came from India,
Right.
shows that customers are actually willing to take this effort, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because, I mean, initially, when we started off, people had concerns. And at that time, the technology was app based. We required three, when we first went to the mobile, we
Right,
required actually three pictures to do it.
right.
Right. At that point, yes, lot of retailers had concerns. But today, it's so simplified. It's just a browser and it's one click. And we've seen people literally from all walks of life,
Mhm.
moms doing it for their kids, people
Right.
doing it for an elderly person who can't, especially in the
Can't go to the
post-COVID
store.
world. Taking anybody to the store has been a huge concern, right? Like go
Right.
let go yourself, and we've really seen the adoption soar in this period.
Well, yeah, wonderful. It's a right app for the right period, right time, and hopefully, they've been saying that like many things which were people were expecting in retail to be adapted in 10 years time, 5 years time, have all
Exactly.
fast forwarded to maybe 5 months, right, or even
Right.
shorter, 5 weeks, right, in
Correct.
some
Right.
cases.
That's
So
right.
you're experiencing that.
Absolutely. And it's not just retail, like we've seen requests from even the medical industry where they're
Hmm.
saying, hey, help us do this to add an insole to your shoe, right? And we've
Wow.
been like, why not? So we're very much looking forward to, taking out a product on that side too.
Right. So would you also work with orthopedics
Absolutely.
or the companies which would do the just the um,
Insole,
the
no,
insoles
actually,
only?
no, actually, our stance is too because we believe that with the medical, this thing like technology is there to assist you, but you
Hmm.
still need a doctor to prescribe the actual insoles for you. So
Right.
we are building a tool which can assist the doctors and the technicians in their clinics, and it'll
Right.
be going through that direction.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. Wonderful. So what's the kind of business impacts beyond these numbers? The like million people adaption. Are there other business impacts that you can that
Absolutely.
your business customers have talked to you and you can share with us?
Absolutely. So one of the huge things is, obviously people ask me, how much returns have you reduced? And that's obviously the first thing that comes to mind, right?
True.
Which, we've worked with several brands in India across, like through some of our other partners, where not the full solution, but even part of the solution. And
Mhm.
we've seen a return reduction of between 40 to 70%. So if your
40 to
return,
70% return reduction, and that's a
absolutely.
huge thing for online
Yes.
retailers especially, right?
Absolutely. So that's a given, right? Like that's something that will happen. But what I'm the most excited about is like with certain retailers we've seen that the people who use a tool like this,
Right.
their conversion ratio is about between 2.5 to 4.5 times more higher than somebody
Than
who
what
doesn't
it
use
was.
a tool,
Oh,
right?
okay,
So
okay.
so that kind of tells you that this kind of gives a level of purchase confidence
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
I mean, especially when somebody's buying online, they're browsing, they're not really sure.
Right.
Uh, Whereas having a tool like this, they're 4 times more likely to convert than not having a tool like this. And I think that is the biggest value that we can provide uh,
Wonderful,
in the
wonderful.
system, right?
Yeah, yeah. Are there some more slides to share, Shabari?
Sure. So
Yeah.
one of the things that what we like to say is that this is today,
Mm-hmm.
right? What you saw, we are matching up. But think of how it looks tomorrow, where actually we think the whole manufacturing is going to change. If I know your foot profile, I know your fit ID, I know the shape. Why
Right.
can't while everybody's customizing everything, you could
Mm.
just customize saying I want it slightly wider or I don't want it I don't want to make any changes, just fit it to me, and
Mm-hmm.
this potentially could be manufactured on demand, right? I
Okay.
mean,
Of
think of the
course,
future, right?
3D picture printing is still far, to this for these kinds of
Correct.
quality is far away. But
Exactly.
but adaptation, you feel they will do it for us?
Oh, very much. I think both. I mean, a lot of the big players, Nike, New Balance, Adidas, everybody has been pushing their manufacturing change
Right.
in this direction. And
Right.
what is the missing piece? Is the missing piece is actually getting a consumer food profile, right? And I think once that gap sort of bridges out, because even from their perspective, right? So if they're selling in America, they just take a bell curve saying, I need to produce the model
Yeah.
size is about 9, 10, and I'm producing just blindly. Whereas if I know in the future that 7% of my customers are going to need a wider foot with a size 11, I'll just map it better, right? And reduce all those losses in advance. So
Absolutely.
why not? And I mean, while I spoke about our mission, how we help end customers, we also offer services to sort of the retailers. Like
Right.
we've had customers who work with us who say that, can you look at our shoes and tell us,
Mm-hmm.
like one of the other services that we offer is like, while understanding the customer foot profile is key, we
Mm.
like, we also say understanding the shoes extremely key, because a Nike 8 and any other 8 is not going to be same size 8.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about it.
Yes, like you mentioned, right? Like, so we
Yeah.
work with them to collect this data, which is the last data, and we can
Right.
kind of give them, data, sort of a dashboard back,
Right.
saying that this is how your shoe is running. In this sort of population, this is how likely it's going to trend.
Mm-hmm.
And we can sort of pre-predict that,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
given that also we sit on a huge and really massive data bank. And we say that,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
so this is I mean, it's interesting that we are working with a very dynamic startup in India who's launching new school shoes for the Indian market, and nobody's done that. And like we've been had a very
Mm.
exciting run on saying that no, children's shoes need to look a little different than what you've been planning. And so
Yeah.
anybody who that's the other service that we work with. We work with brands and retailers to say that, okay, if you have a market in mind, we can help you optimize your sizing, help you optimize the shapes of your shoes, and to drive out a better output, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
not just wait for a customer to return and realize there's a problem. We can solve this upfront and start at the design level, right?
Right. 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 Yeah. Shape, dimensions, everything. So all of this go into it. In fact, I think in the beginning you said that you had 30,000 food profiles you started with, but now you would be like at
Correct.
multi-millions, right, at this point.
Absolutely.
Right.
So that was just our starting point of data
Yeah,
set,
yeah,
then to
yeah.
even assess whether this problem is real or not,
Right.
right? Because I mean, I know I had the problem. I know you had the problem, but we
Right.
didn't before we
I'm sure.
started
I'm sure
going.
many of our viewers and listeners have had these
Right.
things, right? Yeah, 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 yeah.
And
So
then,
yeah, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead. If you have a
No,
question,
no, 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 no,
we can
no, no.
talk.
I'm curious to see where it goes beyond the algorithm, because I'm tempted
So,
to talk about AR, but then let's finish this presentation.
okay.
Whatever
So,
else you.
so essentially, I spoke about the two parts, right? One is scanning the foot, one is scanning the shoe. And
Mm-hmm.
many people think that, hey, they have two 3D geometries. They must be just putting it together and put. I just want to state it out there that shoe fitting is an art,
Right.
right? I
Mm-hmm.
don't want. I mean, when we kind of recommend to you, we understand what is the context of the shoe. Is it a
Mm-hmm.
long distance running shoe? Is it what do you say, a barefoot running shoe?
Right.
Take into many parameters,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
certain brands stand for certain fits. Like one of our customers says, no, our
Mm-hmm.
fits are, we are known for a relaxed fit in the market, and we
Right.
can support that. So that doesn't mean that we can, we'll kind of just say that we're just putting two 3D objects and this is the output. No, we
Mm-hmm.
actually have an algorithm which takes this entire art of shoe fitting and puts it
Mm-hmm.
together nicely to show this, to come up with this entire visual of where what's going to fit you, right? Like
Right.
what we like to say is that if you go into a Gucci or a really fancy custom made Ferragamo showroom, they'll
Mm-hmm.
do this for you. And we sort of want to democratize this and offer this through technology for every shoe that you're buying. You don't have to buy a really expensive shoe to get a good fitting. And we want to kind of bring this down to a very, very democratic and simple level for everybody to use. And so that's sort of, bringing the two pieces of data together and how we actually put this all as an output
So
out.
what you're talking about, Shabari, is it is good. While the modern mass marketing will remain, you're going to do something like mass customization.
That's right. Or at least do a better matching with what's available, right? If you can afford a mass customization, if you can afford a made-to-measure, great. We have a service for that. But if not, even within what is available on the shelf, let me sort of pick the best for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is impossible to even do physically trying. Like even if you go into a store, how many shoes will you try at a go, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas
Mm-hmm.
the software can even if you're in a big massive store, it can sort of shortlist saying that these are the 10 shoes which are going to fit you best, and then you can decide on everything else that's there. right? So this, I really see that role, how we play that as almost like a digital fitter.
Right. Yeah, digital fitting. Yeah, absolutely.
So that's pretty much it. I mean, that's where we just see the, this is an image that is very close to heart, where in the future, we almost see like you could probably adjust the shoe in any particular way that you want, right? And
Right.
really have made to measure, take it to the
So
next
there are
level.
multiple adjustment points where you can
Correct.
Right.
And get it done.
So where will it go? In terms of AR, will that help? Where will that fit in, to use a shoe
Absolutely.
terminology?
To empower that for the shoe. So absolutely AR is the future.
Right.
But there's I mean, we've been working in the space, so maybe I have a slide around that. So maybe I'll come to that. Or I don't. When we started with a big fat red box.
Right.
It was that big. And from there, we've morphed into a smaller box, into an app with 3 photos, app with single photo. Today, we are on the browser with single photo.
Right.
But with a paper. So tomorrow, maybe there will be AR. But what I want to put out there is that the science of measuring your foot, understanding the foot shapes, classifying it, that sort of technology domain knowledge, that's what puts us. I mean, if you ask me what Find Me a Shoe is about, I would say it's about that. Whether the technology will swap to AR, maybe it will stop to even something swankier than AR tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
That's
You're ready to go with wherever, whatever
Correct.
technology is available, but to give the best fit.
Correct. I mean, the science of shoe fitting doesn't change on that, right? And I mean,
it gets
both
better
me and my
if you
partner,
can do.
Exactly. We've been
Maybe with
always
the AR or something like that, you can see how your foot will fit into that shoe or something like that.
Yes,
You could get
absolutely.
a visualization of
Absolutely.
what you're going to, you can project it there and say, hey, this is how my shoe will feet will slide into this design, and I have to do like this, I have to do like this, or something like that, and then understand it better.
Absolutely. So that's definitely, and in fact, that's, doing the fit exactly, AR is still not there, but just doing the look visualization, AR is very much there. There are tools in the market, and we also will be launching our tool on those lines shortly. But when we started this problem, we always had this evaluation of look versus feel. And we realized that shoe fitting, the understanding how it will feel is much, much more important, because you're going to return it. Like, unlike apparel, where the look in the visualization,
or not use it, right? Because it bites, it pinches, and
And it will. So we have a statistics that I think everybody, 1 in 5 purchases you waste. Typically, there's no exception. It sits in your cupboard. You don't return it. It's just there, right? You don't feel good in it. So
absolutely. That happens. I mean, 1 in 5. I have two in my shoes. In my shoe cupboard. I hope my wife doesn't hear it. Right? So what are your plans for the company beyond whatever we have discussed? Or there's something that we have planned that we have not, it does not come out in the discussion so far? What are your plans?
I think we touched upon it briefly, right? Like, so far, what we've spoken about is like fitting part. And we've been, giving services, and we've hit good milestones about taking it out as a stable product. But we want to build a broader recommendation engine, going back to the problem that I faced. So to me, it's also, they're saying that if I want to tomorrow have a service where I want to put in my use case, I'm going to run 20 miles, these things. Give me a suggestion with my fit.
Okay.
Also, right? Just do like a much more broader recommendation. I mean, that has always been our forte of doing a personalized recommendation. We see that scope widening. We see the scope widening in terms of technology, going in different directions. But to me, this is the most exciting, where I can keep helping the customer in a much, much more relevant, personal ways, right?
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Yeah, to be able to say that, like, this is going to be my, I'm planning this use, in this place, or new hobby I'm picking up, or whatever, I'm going on a special trek, or whatever it is, recommend what is in the market for me. Yeah. It's a fascinating discussion, Shabari. That reminds me of in my, I think it was my school days, that I read a short story, and bear with me, this circles back to where we started the discussion on when the measurement started and mass manufacturing started. So this story was about of that time when mass marketing had just started, and my apologies, I don't remember the English writer who wrote that story. So he said that he was used to buy from a German shoemaker in a neighborhood, and then the mass made shoes got better and better, and then he had started trying out those shoes. So one day he thought that he would go back to him and support him, and and also like there was some problem with that particular shoe. So he goes to the
Mhm.
shop and he says, whatever, Gunter or whatever, he said like, oh, I'm looking for a shoe. And he says, so yeah, I understand. I said like, yeah, you're seeing me by wearing this shoe from that shop. Yeah, he says, yeah, I understand it's difficult for me, but I understand why you all do that and things like that. And then he looks at his feet and he tells him the left foot, and then he goes, puts his hand out there in a particular part of his leg, and he says, them shoes hurt you there, like in his half
Yeah.
German, half English.
Yeah.
And the author says that he was just blown away. He's just
Yeah.
standing there. How did this experienced man, just looking at his feet, could tell exactly like where that shoe was hurting him? And he goes on to say that like what we are missing in in that transition era of and I think what you're going to do and what your efforts are and what you're
Right.
aspiring to do in the future will exactly take us to that time when probably even the mass merchandisers will say that like, yeah, I know that, and I can fix it for
Correct.
you, maybe with an
Exactly.
insole, with a fit. I won't
With
just sell
a
you a shell. From a marketing perspective, you can upsell and cross sell, but more than that, you are actually, customize. They may even customize it and say, give us a week more. I
exactly.
can give you an idea, special inset for you, right? Not just a mass insole or something like that.
I mean,
And it will bring you back to that whoever it was, Gunter or whoever was the shoe
that's
craftsman, but you can get it from a mass retailer.
that's exactly the idea, right? Like, I mean, to take this out to scale, and right, I mean, there are a lot of baby steps. So today, very few retailers even offer a different left and a right foot, right? And most
Yeah.
people have a half size difference. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'll be very surprised. It's probably about 96% of the people who actually have a half size difference. But
Right.
nowhere can you buy. So even that baby step, right? And what we envisage is that let's start with that. Let's start with widths, right? Like to go towards this entire mass customization dream, there are enough in opportunities at small intervals, which are very much doable. And I think that's our goal, to help manufacturers and retailers, start taking those steps.
Those incremental steps,
Yeah.
and that, I think that itself will start giving more customer delight,
Yes.
and we will be absolutely, as customers will be absolutely very happy to that some of those things are addressed. And I think it's a very high positive note to bring this conversation to an end.
Right.
Thank you so much, Shabari. It's been wonderful talking to you and
Thank
understanding
you.
the products and services.
So, so thank you so much, Venkat. It's been an absolute delight to to have a conversation with a veteran like you who really
Yeah.
gets the space. And
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah.
super,
Which
super
means I
like
have bought, a lot of shoes
enough
which
juice.
were went wasted. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's not just the hair, but also my feet are doing the talking here.
Oh, God done. So hopefully, we get you better shoes in the future, and
Yeah,
have
absolutely,
you more full
absolutely. Yeah.
shoes.
Thank
Right.
you so much. Thank you for joining us in yet another episode of Move Conversations. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Please subscribe to the Move Conversations YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get notifications of new episodes. Thank you very much. Till I see you in the next episode. Thank you very much. Have a great day.